Hello everyone, you're listening to the Earful Tower podcast. My name is Oliver G and I'm sitting right in front of the producer of today's episode.
And that's me.
A.K.A. Lena, A.K.A. Lovely Lena.
A.k.a. just Lena.
You don't like the lovely Lena anymore?
It's lovely.
It is lovely.
Yeah, it's lovely.
And you're lovely. And that's why
So
I've got you as my producer. What the idea today, everybody, is that I'm going to talk about something that you didn't even know you needed to know. I'm going to talk about elephants in Paris.
Is this future past?
Future past tense.
Yeah,
your
future
favorite.
past tense.
Also
Is that
known
what we're
as
talking
the
about?
present.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about elephants in Paris, and the reason is because I stumbled upon this sort of topic in a recent podcast episode, and I think there's a lot to it. But before we get into it, I want to say this episode is brought to you by Fat Tire Tours. I recently did their Segway tour around Paris with you, actually, Lena.
With me.
And we're going to talk about that at the end of the episode. And just a reminder, you can get 10% off all their tours worldwide if you enter the code EARFUL. Do it this summer. Get booking, but elephants.
Yes.
So here's the thing. What I want to take a few steps back, Lena. Firstly, the reason I asked you to be on this episode is because we are on holiday at the moment. And usually I'd interview someone about Paris, but...
we're kind of in the middle of nowhere.
We're
Lack
in the
of
middle
people means
But
hello!
lack of people means sort of more of a research episode. And this isn't a history podcast, so I'm not going to write out a long script. Instead, I'm going to tell the world and you directly my elephant facts about Paris, because I think they're pretty good.
Are they of ginormous proportion?
Yeah, put it this way, it's going to be a jumbo episode of the Earful Tower. But here's what happened. A couple of episodes ago, I interviewed Christophe Lucien, the man who's the head auctioneer of a big auction company in Paris. And he started talking about an elephant. Did you listen to that episode?
Yeah.
Then? You can be honest.
Well, I did actually.
Okay.
But the elephant confused me to begin with.
Yeah, that's
like,
the
what?
thing. So when he was talking to me, there was a lot going on. We're in a noisy cafe. Someone had just plonked 2 big hot chocolates in front of us. And he was telling me the story of the item that was the highest price-getting item at his recent auction of Paris memorabilia. And he started explaining it to me, and I didn't really understand. And I went back and listened to it and then started researching. And it turned out to lead down a really interesting kind of wormhole of this big topic, elephants in Paris. You had no idea how many elephants there were in this city.
No.
So what I've done is I've gathered a few of those stories. And I was going to actually start with this question for you, Lena, is what is the Arc de Triomphe, the Bastille, the Paris Zoo, and the Moulin Rouge all have in common?
Outrageous entry prizes?
Yes, but also unusual connection to a great elephant story. So I'm going to start with. I'm going to tell all 4 in the same order I think that I just said them.
Okay.
And the idea at home is you can use these tips maybe to surprise your friends. They're all good stories. They're worth researching further. And I think best of all, there's some really interesting photographs and paintings of what I'm going to tell you that I think everyone should go and look at. And I'll put them all on the website, theearfultower.com. So let's rewind, and I'll tell you a couple stories. And,
Please.
So I'm going to start with the Arc de Triomphe, the elephant. This is the elephant that never was. The idea was, way back when they were deciding what to put where the Arc de Triomphe was, someone came up with the idea of building an enormous elephant. So where the Arc de Triomphe... So the Arc de Triomphe, if you've never heard of it, if you've been living under some kind of massive rock, it's the huge victory arch at the end of the Champs-Élysées.
Exactly.
Which you can climb up, 50 meters tall, quite a big...
and all these roads lead out from it in like a star formation.
That's
almost.
right, and it's very frightening to ride around or to scoot around.
It is, because there are no direct lanes. It's just like a free-for-all.
I read somewhere, and I'm not sure if it's true,
or
but...
free for none.
If you rent a car and you're in an accident on that roundabout around the Champs-Élysées, around the Arc de Triomphe, that they won't give you any money for it. Like
Why?
Your insurance. I don't know, because it's just too dangerous. I heard that, not sure if it's true. Someone can fact check that one. It's a good fact, though, if it is true.
Well, I mean...
But let's stick with the facts that I have researched. And the idea was, before they built it, they had someone had made a big... I've got the name here. A French architect, Charles Ribard, submitted a plan for what he called l'éléphant triomphal, as in the triumphal elephant. And I've got his... I don't know, you wouldn't call it blueprints. I guess, what do you call that?
Yeah,
A sketch
Blueprint.
of what it was going to look like. And this was, I was going to say a mammoth. This was a mammoth plan for this enormous, so a 3-story building with a spiral staircase that went up into its underbelly. And a fountain or drainage coming out its trunk. So looking at this image,
I love it.
it's cool, right?
Also, he looks very obese. Even for an elephant.
It was a really fat
out of
elephant.
proportion.
So the idea was that it was gonna be this massive elephant standing in the middle there, and you could go up. There was a viewpoint on the top.
Wow, I love it. It also looks like there's what do you call it? Party. Like you can rent this hall for a party.
You mean the inside
yes.
bit? Yeah, it does look like that, which is interesting.
In his like lungs, I suppose.
It's funny that you say that because one of the later elephants we're going to get to involves something a bit like that.
Oh, okay.
But the design was rejected, and they decided not to do it.
Do we know why?
No, it just says that, well, my research leads to the French government rejected it.
Oh.
Don't know why, but
okay.
This is the elephant that never was, but we're about to get to another elephant that almost was.
I guess the Arc de Triomphe is like a very, very simplified elephant.
How so?
Sorts. It's just like the legs and the body.
It kind of is,
very,
isn't it?
very, very simplified.
So that was in about 1750, but lo and behold, the idea of an elephant monument... We should take a step back here. An elephant monument throughout the world, if you read about the sort of cultural significance of elephants anywhere, you can find statues, you can find them in stories dating back to forever. Mostly because they're used as in war, prowess in war. In France, there's no, remember when we crossed the Alps on the scooter?
Yeah.
And we were telling the story of Hannibal crossing the Alps with the elephant?
With the elephant.
There's been a long, 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 long line of elephant statues and stories, so they've been...
That is interesting.
It is interesting, but the next story, the Elephant of the Bastille, some people might be familiar with, and that's actually the one that came up via the auctioneer. So I'm going to rewind to what the auctioneer said. This was a really cool story. He started telling me about the highest selling item at his auction was an elephant. And I'd seen this elephant, and it was about the size of a, I don't know, wild boar. Can you imagine that? Right. So it was a big elephant, and it sold for 40,000 euros, or close to 40,000 euros. And it was down at the Bastille. It was up above a shop that used to be a pool hall, like a billiard hall, that was called À l'Éléphant, at the elephant. And it was based, so here's where it gets interesting. This elephant was based on an elephant that was built at the Bastille. Now, where I got confused when Christophe was telling me was that the elephant of the Bastille never was built. It was a model of the elephant that was to be built. Okay, you still with me?
So there was an elephant built?
There was an elephant, but it was
just
just
like
a plaster one. A plaster one.
Ah.
So what happened is Napoleon wanted an elephant.
Okay.
I think maybe he'd heard talk of the one that was going to be the Arc de Triomphe about 50 years earlier.
Right.
And yeah, so in 1808, he goes, I want an elephant, I want it at the Bastille, let's do it. His idea was, because step back again, this is where the prison was, the Bastille prison. You heard of this, right? The French Revolution, they stormed the Bastille, it got knocked down. Today in Paris, you can go to the location of the Bastille. It's another big roundabout with a big column in the middle, the July column. I'm going to get back to that as well.
Okay.
There's a lot of going to get back to forward.
All right, yeah.
Okay, so what the idea was, they were going to build a big elephant. They started work on it. It was taking forever. Everyone sort of got a little bit upset that it was taking too long to build. So the designers and the architects said, look, let's just build a plaster version of it, and we'll set that up so that people know what's going to happen. Right? Meanwhile, Napoleon's off at wars. Everything's going on. The elephant gets forgotten. 30 years, this massive elephant stand just made out of plaster. A temporary elephant.
Really?
Yeah. So... And this is what Christophe was telling me, but we didn't develop it. This massive elephant, it became like a sort of symbol of that part of France and was immortalized in the Victor Hugo book Les Miserables. Gavroche, the little boy, lives in the leg of it, I think. Or at least he squats in the leg of it.
Yeah.
But that book was written a lot longer. But the monument stood, I've got the dates here, 1813 to 1846, right? So it was 24 meters high, which is, to put into perspective, half of the Arc de Triomphe height, or you could say 50 baguettes high, right?
I love that.
So I've got pictures of what it looked like, or what it was going to look like. If I click to make that one big, it would have been incredible.
Oh, and painted as well.
Yeah, so I'm going to put all these pictures on the site, but this...
That looks like if the... Okay, imagine just take a regular elephant, right?
Yeah.
Grey, big. But then cross that with a belly dancer. That's what it looks like.
You're looking at the Bastille as it was meant to be. But that also... So I looked up, that thing on its back is called a howdah. Howdah, and that would have been like a viewing platform. So similar to the other elephant that we were talking about.
It's like the saddle, sort of.
Exactly.
It looks like a huge saddle.
Kind of like in, I think it's Lord of the Rings,
Yes.
they're riding big elephants.
Yeah.
It looks a lot like that. Anyway, what happened, because it was just made of plaster, it eventually sort of fell to ruin. And the residents were complaining that there were so many rats scurrying around in there. They didn't like it. It was obviously never going to be completed because it had just been a half sculpture for 30 years that they eventually...
Was it full size? The
Yeah,
plaster one?
yeah.
Ah, right. Okay.
So they eventually tore it down. And instead, they built that massive column, the July column, that stands at the Bastille today.
Yeah.
But they kept... The only thing remaining from the elephant sculpture is what's called the socle, or the
base.
foot of it. Yeah. So the bottom of the sculpture is where the elephant was standing, but it never happened. So there was an elephant.
That's so interesting.
But I've got...
I'm going to go back to Bastille and have a little look at it.
Yeah.
And see, and just try to picture it there.
Do you want, I've got a quote here from Victor Hugo's Les Miserables talking about the elephant as it stood. He said, "It was falling to ruins. Every season the plaster, which detached itself from its sides, formed hideous wounds upon it."
Ugh.
That sounds pretty...
Yeah, like rabies.
It's where...
Elephant rabies.
Yeah. And skipping ahead, because that bit's a little bit... Oh, wow, it's quite... The language is amazing. There it stood in the corner, melancholy, sick, crumbling, surrounded by a rotten palisade, soiled continually by drunken coachmen, as in they used as a toilet, I suppose. Cracks meandered athwart its belly. A lath projected from its tail. Tall grass flourished between its legs. And... as the level of the place had been rising all around it for a space of 30 years by that slow and continuous movement which insensibly elevates the soil of large towns, it stood in a hollow, and it looked as though the ground were giving way beneath it. It was unclean, despised, repulsive, and superb, ugly in the eyes of the bourgeois, melancholy in the eyes of the thinker.
Wow.
God, that book would take ages to read.
Yeah, that was a mouthful.
Yeah, but it was nice. It was nice.
And
eh?
an earful.
So there you go. So there's and what I wanted to finish on that story is if you watch the movie Les Miserables, the recent one from I think 2012 with Hugh Jackman and Russell Crowe, there is an elephant in it. If you watch this scene where...
Like the final parade sort of thing.
Yeah, it's the one, can you hear the people sing? So if you,
powerful.
Yeah, if you... It gives me chills just thinking about it.
Very much.
I wonder how many times I've mentioned that movie on this show. So in that scene, if you watch at the very start when they're singing, there's a rather big elephant. Not an enormous elephant. Probably not... they built it to scale. Anyway, there you go. So that was the elephant that sort of was, but never really was. Good story, huh?
Very good story. I like it a lot.
So let me take you on to another elephant. But first...
So many elephants.
Well, I'm going to split up the elephant stories because, maybe people... You know what? I taught podcasting at university in Paris, believe it or not, to young students. And they wanted me to teach them what makes a good podcast, right? And I said, this is what I came up with, is that it has to be... A good podcast has to be one of these three things. It has to be entertaining, informative, or useful, right?
Yeah.
So like if you're doing a podcast about how to fix computers, that could be very useful. Right? If you're doing a stand-up comedy one, it could be very entertaining. And I said if you can try and make one that has all three, you've got a really good podcast.
The Holy Trinity.
That's what I said. I didn't use that. I wish I'd talked to you before. Yes. Anyway, I figured this episode
the producer. Always talk to the producer. Where would you place this podcast?
That's what I was going to say. That's why I was bringing it up. This one is a bit more informative or
you kind of dabble.
It's not useless. It's useless. It's not useful. But I'm trying to make it entertaining, so I'll read out an email, a Gmail, from a listener. So, and this one involves you, which I thought was kind of perfect. It's from John Murray, a name I recognise well.
Yes, me too.
Patreon supporter. He wrote,
John D?
Yeah, John D. Murray.
Yeah.
He says, I loved, in capitals, the Versailles podcast episode. It and Giverny may be two of my all-time favourites. I recognise that you can't do it all the time, and that's fine. I do look forward to seeing more from time to time. We aren't getting back to Paris anytime soon, so I regret that I can't book a Fat Tire tour to support them and you, but I love what it's added to the podcast so far. Thanks very much to you,
That's
John Murray.
That's so nice.
Yeah, I love those episodes too.
I was just thinking about like not being in Paris and be able to book with Fat Tire. Do they do like gift cards?
I have no idea.
We have to look into that.
Look into it.
Yeah.
But you can book if you're not coming to Paris anytime soon.
True.
And don't forget 10% off if you mention the code word earful. But thanks for that message on John D. Murray, and I like what you're saying. I do enjoy doing the episodes from the road, and it's fun to do them with you, Lena. With the music and the cheese shops. If you guys are listening to this episode for the first time, I pity you. Because this isn't a regular episode. This is a bit different. It's not always like this, but I'm out of Paris.
I like it. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's a bit like the honeymoon season, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Let me take you to another elephant.
All right.
Did you know there used to be an enormous elephant at the Moulin Rouge?
Really?
Yes, and you see you're already distracted by the picture of it that I pulled up here.
It doesn't even look... Wow, it looks amazing.
So what, if you want to imagine, now we're talking way back, this is around 1900,
yes.
So over 100 years ago, it's long since gone, don't try and find it, although the Moulin Rouge was a lot of fun.
It almost looks a bit scary.
It is like frightening, isn't it?
Like a huge elephant come tumbling in on this tea party.
It looks really,
in the garden.
Yeah, so that's where it was.
Wow.
It was behind the big windmill, and there's still a few photos of it that I'm going to put on the site, but there was a tea garden out the back.
Yeah.
And people...
There's sort of a tea garden now. You know that bar that's like to the side of it? Do you think that's where it's...
That's a little known secret. I don't think I've ever talked about it on the Earful Tower. If you're standing out the front of the Moulin Rouge and you're looking up at the big red windmill of an evening... look at it and then shuffle leftwards, okay? So turn left, essentially.
How many baguettes length worth?
I'd say about 20 baguettes.
20 baguettes.
And then there's if you turn right, there's a little alleyway. I don't know what it's called. It's called Cité de something.
That's right.
And you go up that alleyway. You'd never know.
It looks like you shouldn't go in there.
Exactly.
Don't get scared off.
It looks like you're going to try and get in backstage at the Moulin Rouge, and in a way you are. And then there's a set of, I think it was stairs or an elevator or something. You go up and there's an outdoor terrace. And there's no view or anything there, but it's pretty nice.
It's nice. It's like hidden away.
I wouldn't quite call it a tea garden, though. And looking at these pictures, there definitely did used to be a tea garden.
Wow.
And people would... In one of the photos that we're looking at, you can see the Moulin Rouge dancers. And then you can see people mingling in the foreground with a massive, sad-looking elephant in the background. So the idea was that people could go up, and they paid 1 franc, which, 100 years ago, I've got no idea what that was, but it was some kind of opium den.
Oh, really?
For gentlemen who could go up, so they'd go up through one of the legs or through the belly again.
Yeah.
And they'd pay their franc, and there'd be belly dancers up there, and
so you know the
opium.
Wow.
Yeah.
Decadent.
Right.
So you know the film The Moulin Rouge, obviously with Nicole Kidman.
Absolutely.
Countryman, woman of you.
Another Australian,
yours. Yes. Yep. Anyway, she had her private little boudoir kind of bedroom up in the elephant's head.
How do you remember that? Honestly?
I just remember that scene.
Because it's funny that you say that.
Because it's so weird, and you're like, what? Why? What? But now it sort of makes sense.
Well, it's funny that I went and researched this, and you know the scene, they call it I've got it here as well, the elephant medley, they call it. The Moulin Rouge elephant song medley. So where Ewan McGregor and Nicole Kidman are singing and dancing on the rooftops of Paris, they, like you said, they're dancing on the elephant's head and his back. There's another howdah. One of the... I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it. I think it's an Arabic word. On the saddle of the elephant is where she lives. And where they do that scene where he's going, I was made for loving you, baby, and singing, it's like a medley of 50 different love songs.
Yeah.
There's a scene where they pan out. Should I play a bit of it? Is there a risk we'll get sued? There you go. I went right to the right bit here, look.
That's it.
Okay, I should stop because who knows if they're going to sue me for that. Don't want to get sued by Ewan McGregor and Baz Luhrmann. But where he's standing right now, where I've paused it, he's standing on the elephant's head looking over Paris. So it was kind of immortalized in the Moulin Rouge film.
Exactly.
But it didn't live for long. The story behind the elephant is kind of cool too. It was from one of the big Paris exhibitions. So a couple
World exhibition.
That's right, where a lot of things happened when the Eiffel Tower was built for. And they bought a stucco elephant from that, planted it in the Moulin Rouge. It lived a semi-decent life. And I
wonder how they got it up the hill. Do you think they used real elephants?
I don't know. That's a good question. But if you go to the Musée de Montmartre, the Montmartre Museum, which we went to fairly recently, there are a few pictures. There's a whole section about the Moulin Rouge, remember? And there are pictures of the elephant there too, I seem to remember.
Yeah.
But there are some old postcards from Paris that I'll stick on the site as well, where you can see the big famous windmill of the Moulin Rouge, which looks a lot different today, actually.
In this picture, it looks like the elephant is turned
Yeah.
away.
So
So you see his bum.
Exactly, that's exactly right.
That's so weird.
So when you were the garden was directly behind the windmill, and you would walk in pretty much towards the elephant's
Like
rear end.
between his legs,
Yeah,
sort
there's
of.
another picture of it too, and it looks like there's windows in his bum.
Yeah.
2 big windows in his bum. So this is I hope we've described it well enough for you, but if you don't have access to the site, you can imagine that behind the big red windmill of the Moulin Rouge, there was a big
Like a
grey
full-scale
elephant.
elephant
Yeah.
turned away.
But they decided they didn't want it anymore. They decided it was an elephant that didn't matter, or as I'd call it, an irrelevant.
Stop it.
I will stop it. And I'm going to go on to the last elephant story of the day. I've done 3, but I'm going to read another little email out that I quite liked from Renate in Brisbane.
All right.
So she writes, "Hi Oliver, Renate from Brisbane here. It sounds like a French name, but she's not writing, this is me. Sounds like Renate with an accent on the E, like cafe, in Brisbane. So I don't know if she's French,
maybe
Australian. I love listening to your podcast while I'm walking my dog in the park in the morning." Imagine, if Renate hasn't turned it off by now because of the too many elephants in an episode, she's out walking her dog. Oh goodness, we should use that one.
Yeah, we will.
It's a beautiful big park that she walks her dog, filled with the scent of eucalyptus trees and the screech of cockatoos and rainbow lorikeets. Oh, isn't that nice?
Nice.
Rainbow lorikeets and cockatoos. That takes me back. Very typically Australian, but sometimes I'm in Paris a bit thanks to your show. And now she had an aha moment that I'm going to read. Mm-hmm. And by aha, I'm not referring to the Norwegian band, which as a Swede you probably thought immediately of.
Of course.
Take me on. Take on me.
Take on me.
No. She says, "This morning I just had to message you about my wonderful aha moment on this morning's walk. I'm currently reading Cara Black, thanks to the Eiffel Tower." She said that. I didn't say it. Yeah. I'm now up to her 3rd book, Murder in the Sentier. And as I listened to your great Bone Shaker episode, which was fairly recent, I'm suddenly transported to the Sentier district. Wonderful synchronicity. Now I'm looking forward to watching the walking tour as well. Love your shows. Keep them coming. Cordialement, Renate.
That was nice.
That's one of my favourite kind of emails. You know why?
Tell me.
Firstly, she's a Patreon supporter.
Oh, yeah.
As is John Murray.
Oh, yeah.
Secondly, she said where she listens to the podcast.
That's what I really
love
like
it.
too.
Rainbow lorikeets,
Yeah,
walking
you
the
really
dog
picture it.
in Brisbane.
And it's so surreal to think that she'd be walking around like that and having, well, now maybe my voice too.
Weird.
In her ears.
The only thing that was missing, Renate, no suggestions. Love those suggestions. Keep them coming as well. Now, thanks for the email, Renate. You didn't give me anything to answer either, but I liked your email. And you know the other thing that I've been toying around with? If you guys aren't Patreon supporters, firstly, you're missing out. But secondly, what I've been doing is I've been having a big conversation with everyone there. I don't know if I've told you this, Lena. If I should if I should experiment with voice messages on the podcast.
Uh-huh.
So people like Renate could call in, leave a message, with the lorikeets in the background and the cockatoos, and say, "Hey, Oliver," or maybe "Hey, Oliver," I don't know, is she French? I'm listening to the show and I wanted to know this, or I just wanted to say this, and then I could play it on the episode.
I love it.
Yeah. Well,
that's a really cool idea.
Not everyone loves it.
Really?
Everyone could vote on it, and it was leaning towards do it, Oliver, but it was also, there was a few people saying, yeah, I'm not so sure, Oliver. Anyway, if you haven't voted in that poll, go back and do it. And speaking of Patreon, the book club. You can vote on the book for August book club, the one that's leading.
How many do you have to choose from?
6. I put 6 books to choose from, and the one that's leading is Paris to the Past. And then The Hotel on Place Vendôme. So that looking likely to be the book for August for the book club. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you're out of the loop. Go and find the book club and be the 572nd member of it. Now, time to talk about the last elephant. This is a bit of a... Oh, it's a bit of a sad one, Lena. What can I say?
Oh.
Yeah, in the Paris Zoo. I'm going to cut this one short because we've been talking for quite a while. And also, this is the one that I know the least about. Plus, it's been on the show before, but there were 2 elephants, Castor and Pollux. Or Pollux. And when I say that, you're probably thinking the twin brothers of Greek and Roman mythology.
But of course.
Yeah, wrong. These are the 2 elephants in Paris. And we're talking in the late 1870s. You might remember. I know what you're thinking straight away.
Yeah.
Paris is under siege.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, again.
You're thinking those Prussians, aren't you? You're thinking that, right?
Oh, the Prussians.
And the English?
Oh, the English.
It wasn't the English. I was testing you.
Oh.
It was Prussians had Paris under siege. You guys have probably heard the story before. The Parisians ran out of food.
Yeah.
That's how they eventually gave up. But what happened first was they started eating all the horses, they started eating all the rats, and
The pets.
everything, including, I hate to say it, but Castor and Pollux, the two elephants who were the prize attraction of the Jardin des Plantes Zoo,
Wow.
which is still a zoo today. You can go and
Things
check it out.
must have been bad.
You know, I've been thinking a lot about it. I'll get back to the elephants, the actual story in a second. Things surely were bad, but I don't feel like they ate the elephants for survival. You know?
Really?
Yeah, I don't feel like it makes sense because they sold it to one restaurant for a lot of money. I feel like there was money involved. I feel like there's a bit of
Isn't there always?
I feel like it's more about the story, you know, because there must have been a huge population of Paris at the time. It's not like they needed those last two elephants to eat.
Yeah.
You know, I don't buy
Maybe
that.
you got a point there.
Yeah, but
Well, tell me about it.
Well, I've got
anyways.
the story. So, firstly, they ate up to 70,000 horses,
Whoa.
which is crazy.
That's a lot.
Yeah, right? Which makes me think, how much meat is on an elephant? Anyway, they sold them to an unusually named restaurant. It was called the Boucherie Anglaise. What does that tell you?
English butcher.
Yeah, on the Boulevard Haussmann
the-
Boulevard. So I
Okay.
think that's down by Printemps,
Yeah.
where you sell your shoes.
Where I sell my shoes, guys.
But here's the story, right? So they're running out of food, and there was a newspaper of the day, the Gazette des Absents, that reported that they were killed on 29th of December and the 30th of December, the elephants that is, by explosive steel-tipped bullets fired from a range of 10 meters.
Whoa, that sounds really
It's-
violent.
It sounds
Yeah,
gruesome.
how would you kill an elephant?
With a steel-tipped explosive bullet from 10 meters.
Ooh.
Yes, well, that's the answer. And they killed it. They sold it for 27,000 francs for the pair. And then, what I'm reading here, the guy who ran the restaurant did well out of the purchase. He sold the trunks as a delicacy for 40. There you go. He's selling delicacy. So it wasn't about starving, which kind of makes you a bit upset, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To sell as a delicacy.
When people are dying.
Yeah, continue to eat the rats,
Oh.
I'd say. So the trunks for 40 francs a pound, the other part for 10 to 14 francs a pound. But by all accounts, the elephant wasn't tasty.
Oh, really?
No. We've got a few people who wrote about it.
Yeah.
Because at the time, the zoo seemed to have sold all its animals. There's a menu, I'll put that on the site too, where you can see kangaroo stew and all, camel cutlets, whatever.
Back. Yeah.
But there is a quote here that I'm going to read you. Henry Labouchere, who was sort of a wealthy politician, writer, whatever. He was all over the place, this guy. Here's what he wrote in his journal. Yesterday, I had a slice of Pollux for dinner.
What's Pollux?
Pollux is one of the elephants.
Oh, no.
Castor and Pollux. Pollux and his brother Castor are two elephants which have been killed. It was tough, coarse, and oily, and I do not recommend English families to eat elephant as long as they can get beef or mutton.
Wow.
Yeah.
Imagine eating elephant. It just seems so surreal.
Right?
I don't like it.
No, I don't
like
like
the
it
idea
either.
of it
But there
at
you go. It doesn't
all.
taste good anyway, so you shouldn't be killing elephants. But there you go. There's the story of the 4 elephants, in case you're ever in a pub quiz and you need to answer. There was the elephant that never was.
Elephants of Paris.
5, really, if you count the 2 at the zoo.
Yes.
The one that never was at the Arc de Triomphe. The one that sort of temporarily was at the Bastille. You could even count the one they sold at the auction. The one at the Moulin Rouge, and then Castor and Pollux, the dinner elephants.
But do you think that the elephant sort of lives again in the elephant that not? The mechanical one?
Interesting point.
Did you think about that one?
I didn't. I forgot about the one in Nantes.
Yes, we saw it last summer.
So you're referring to the enormous elephant that I think is based on a Jules Verne novel.
Yeah, I think so.
And it goes walking around Nantes if you're
Yes.
lucky enough to be there at the time that it goes walking, which we weren't.
No, we weren't.
But you can go and see
But
it
it's
anyway.
magnificent.
I'll put a picture of that in there as
Oh,
well.
yeah. Chuck it in.
There you go. That's the episode for today. We're going to finish on a little note about segways. Because this episode...
Is this a segue?
Oh, it is a segue. Damn. That was good.
Okay, redo this one.
No, they're going to have to get it as it is.
Oh, no.
What I want to say is this show is only possible because of Fat Tire Tours. Because they sponsor the show, I'm doing an episode on Thursday as well. The deal with them is I'm going to talk to you about one of their tours at the end of the episode, and you'll hopefully buy one of their tours at 10% off, mentioning the word Earful at the checkout. But we did something that we hadn't done before, a Segway tour of Paris. You're laughing.
I
because
was
you
so
were scared.
nervous. I was so nervous.
I was really
I thought
excited.
I would end up in the sand. Like, seriously.
Mm.
That wasn't even a stretch of my imagination.
There's footage of Lena when she first started riding the Segway for the first time, and you were going real slow,
Well, I was whizzing like the wind.
And the tour guide,
Yeah.
Molly, was saying, faster now, faster. And you were going, faster! As if it was the most, you were going at the speed of a walking elephant at the time. No, but the tour was really cool. It actually was really cool.
It was great. I loved it.
I'm pretty sure it was my favourite of all the tours.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
I'm a bit crazy on the old Segway, and I
Yeah.
was testing its capabilities.
Yeah, you tend to do that.
And I was going at top speed, and I thought it was pretty fun. It is actually really fun.
You're doing backflips. And
If you want to do something a little bit different, check out the Segway Tour of Paris. It's on fattiretours.com.
But I have to stress, like, I'm not the craziest of people, so it was very easy. It's very, very
It's
easy to
surprisingly intuitive, isn't it?
learn. It really is. It really, really is.
And there's some cool pictures of us down by the Eiffel Tower.
Slow motion.
Slow motion pictures, boomerang pictures.
Yeah.
It's something a bit different if you want to see Paris from a different side. So what we did is essentially we left their office down by the Eiffel Tower. We did a big loop around the river, down on the riverbanks, which is really nice.
Yeah, with
I
the
did a
occasional stops.
That's right, and they do the tour bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Past the Invalides, but I also did the world's first Facebook Live podcast episode from the back of the Segway.
You're crazy.
Yeah, it was a bit silly, but it was fun. So you can go check that out on Facebook if you give the Eiffel Tower an old like on the old Facebook channel.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, big takeaway of this episode, go to fattiretours.com. They're sponsoring this show for the summer. If you want to help me to make it work, book one of their trips. They do walking tours, Segway tours, excellent Segway tours. They go out to Giverny, Versailles, fireworks, anything you want. It's there. fattiretours.com.
They're all really nice.
And they're really nice people, aren't they?
Yeah, they're really
We must have had
nice.
about 8 tour guides now.
Yeah.
And they're all lovely.
Yeah.
But thanks, Molly, for the Segway ride. Particularly fun. And as for all you guys out there in podcast land, get your noses in the history books and read more on those elephants.
Maybe they can find even more elephants.
No, we're done with elephants. Done with elephants.
Done.
That's
Moving
done.
on. Giraffes?
Yes. Oh, there is a good giraffe story. But
Actually?
I'll tell it now. There was a giraffe they walked up from Africa. And then they took it on a boat from Africa. It was a gift to a king, I don't know. And when they got to Marseille, they're like, how are we going to get an elephant from Marseille to Paris? So they walked it up. So
Do you mean the giraffe?
Yeah, they walked the giraffe. It took, I don't know.
But how did it cross the ocean? I guess
In a boat. They put it in a... Anyway, we're not here to talk about giraffe. Thank you to everybody for listening. Go and check the website for pictures of the elephants. Become a Patreon supporter and check out Fat Tire Tours. Oh, and Lena, the co-host of this episode, aka producer, aka Lovely Lena, is on Instagram at Parisian Postcards.
C'est moi.
Give her a little follow as well. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Au revoir.